Right. So that's why RUOK Day is personally important to me. And what I'd like to do now is introduce, for some of us, a familiar face, but Diane McCabe, who has spent a number of years previously with our organisation, and I'll read the bio just to make sure I get it right. From roles from security architect to director IT business systems and organisational change manager. Diane now runs her own business up on the screen there, The Happy Path, which supports individuals and organisations going through courageous, mindful change. So I'd now like to pass you on to Diane to share her thoughts with you.
Hello everyone. Thank you everyone for introducing me, and I know Joe is down the back and Louise that have invited me in and got me ready, prepared to speak to you all today. And I want to say a huge thank you as well to Umit and the RLT, because it's not a lot of organisations out there that are courageous enough to have a former employee come in to speak about mental health. And that's what I'm here to speak to you about today. So firstly, I'd just like to say that in all my times working for this company, doing workshops, project meetings, I've never had an audience with this many people actually. So that's my win for today. First of all, I want to say that I get it. I know a lot of you have, back-to-back meetings. It's difficult to kind of squeeze in half an hour to come up here and have a chat. Can you just leave whatever is going on in your mind, whatever's going on in the workplace, whatever's going on in your family life, just leave it at the door for a moment and be fully present for the next 20 minutes or so. The other thing that I want to ask you to do is take off your corporate hat. So whether you are VP of sales, whether you're service desk technician, whether you are technology training manager, HR generalist, packaging technologist, no matter who you are, take off the hat and drop it down, because I want to talk to you human to human and heart to heart. So, are you okay? You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. I'm not expecting you to answer that question, but I do want you to just take a deep breath, check in internally and think, how am I doing? Am I okay? Deep breath. Two years ago, thereabouts, I was really not okay. So far removed from being okay. And during that time, I was working in this very office, going through these meeting rooms, working with many of you here. And I felt like there was this huge big flashing sign across my forehead that was saying, breakdown imminent. And most people didn't know that. Yeah, she's a bit stressed out. Yeah, she's working on that big US project. That's what people saw, but they didn't know what was happening inside. Now, I've struggled with my mental health since I was a teenager, so I've had all the ups and downs that go with this. And throughout that time, the majority of people didn't actually know. Only a few people very close to me knew what I was going through at any of those given points in time. And 2 years ago was one of the lowest of the low. But for most people who are going through really, really tough times, we put on a mask. And I became a really good person at putting on a mask. Every morning I'd leave home or I'd get on my conference calls with the US, mask on, ready to go. Yeah, she's got it sorted, she can run this project, she can do whatever, it doesn't matter what's happening in life. But that takes a toll. For people who do wear the mask, it takes a toll. And for me, I'm sure there was a few cracks around, people who knew me or worked closely with me that could see that happening. But again, it gets dismissed as, oh, she's probably okay. It's just a project they're going through. Or I think there might be a rough time going on at home. But things get dismissed all the time. For me, that toll, that personal cost, was very much that I would have the mask on during the day, and this is not just about work, so it's not a work-related thing, but as Imran said, you bring this into the office with you, you're a whole person. So whether I was dropping my daughter off to school, whether I was coming into work to have a meeting, whether I was, hanging out with friends, I was wearing this mask. And then it took its toll, because the minute I walked through my doors at home, the people I felt comfortable with, my husband and my then 6-year-old daughter, were the two that bore the brunt of this. And my mental health was deteriorating really, really badly. I was suffering anxiety, under a lot of stress, having major panic attacks. Like, I remember the toilets. I went to the bathroom before I had the speech this morning, and I was in there thinking, I remember having panic attacks in here. But I also said that on my physical health, so having panic attacks, but also I was having failing liver function, and I was spiraling further and further into depression. So the toll of wearing the mask every day, I come home to my family, and I had 2 modes of operation at home. One, I call this the pendulum. So on one side, the lights are on and nobody is home. I was vacant. I was numbed out. And you cannot be like that when you have a husband and a 6-year-old child. So I had nothing left to give. I literally had nothing that I was available, emotionally available for my family. And when there's a little one tugging on you for this or that, and the 300 months that go per day, I would then swing to being someone who was completely erratic, irrational, and unleash all of this stuff that I was holding inside. And you imagine this little girl who didn't deserve any of this, didn't know what was going on, but I was doing that to her. And then the guilt gets you. We all know about mother's guilt or parent guilt. So you feel guilty and you swing back to, I just need to be quiet, I need to shut up, I need to stop talking to people, I just need to hold myself together. But I go to bed, wouldn't sleep very well, get up in the morning and face goes back on, the mask is there, and I'm ready for another day at work. So this for me got worse and worse and worse. And we mentioned the employee assistance line. I knew that was there. I'm a fairly well-educated person. I trust the EAP, but I still didn't pick up the phone. I have good friends that were reaching out to me. I ignored them completely. It's like, I'm fine, I'm okay. And then I started getting text messages from 2 friends, and it started out badgering me to go to the doctor. 5 times a day, they were sending me a cactus, because it was the only emoji that represented the thorn in my side, and it was, have you been to the doctor, have you been to the doctor, have you been to the doctor? So there's nothing wrong with being a thorn in someone's side. So they really pushed me, but their courage to reach out to me, and then my courage to eventually go to the doctor, was the beginning of my happy path. Me finding my way forward, me starting to look after myself. So why am I sharing this with you today? Because I am a former colleague, a former employee. I'm a real face, a real person that you would have seen in the corridors, sat in meetings with, probably, maybe had a few robust conversations with from time to time. But I am a real person who has been struggling with mental health in the workplace for many, many years, 12 years in this organisation. But I'm only one person. And statistics tell us that here in Australia, that there are 1 in 5 people who suffer with a mental health issue in any given year. So that means in this room today, 20% in this organisation have or will suffer with some kind of mental issue, not necessarily mental illness, but you will come across a mental issue during that time. A more disturbing statistic is that 8 people in Australia choose to take their life every day. Now I want to let that sink in a little bit. And now I want you to look around the room. I mean eye to eye. I want you to look around the room at each other. Can you tell who's suffering with mental health struggles? Can you tell who may be suffering with a mental illness? Can you tell who may have contemplated suicide? We can't. We don't know. Because everybody is very good at keeping that mask on. So in the organisation, it is not just about mental health. It's not just about mental illness, because some people like to think that, oh, it's only if you're diagnosed with a mental illness. But every day we've got stuff going on that impacts our mental health. New parents, anyone? Lack of sleep, it's known as a form of torture. But there's also postnatal depression. And you could be either going through that yourself or supporting someone else. Financial stresses. Majority of people have those, and again, they may come in some waves. Relationship issues. That can be divorce, separation. It can be just not getting on with your family, and that takes a toll on you. Supporting a family member through an illness. Someone who needs extra care from you. Depression. Bipolar disorder or a diagnosed mental illness, gambling problems, grief, substance abuse, thoughts of suicide, eating disorders, and anxiety. These are just some of the things that people around us walk into an organisation carrying around with them every day. They don't wear them like a badge or a label like that. We don't know. We don't know what is going on for people. So let me ask you, are you willing, if you knew that this was going on and we were carrying these signs around with us, raise your hand if you're willing to help people out, help a colleague out who is in trouble or needs some help. For the people who are going through any issue at the moment, looking around at that number of hands, lets you know you're not alone. And they're not doing it just for me. They're not doing it just because Umit is standing in the corner. And that's a genuine, they care about you. So people do care, and you need to reach out. So now for the tough question. How many of you, and be honest, dig deep, how many of you feel comfortable to do that?
To do what?
To reach out to another person who is struggling. So yeah, but it's are you going to do it? Is it something that you're going to? So there's less hands that do that. So the reality is we've got two situations here. On one side, we've got the person like me who's going through a mental health issue and is not asking for help. Needs help but will not ask. And on the other side, we just shown we've got a huge amount of people who want to give help, but they don't know how. Or they don't know how to get over that hurdle of feeling awkward, being uncomfortable to help that other person. And this is where I believe the biggest issue is. That if we truly want to transform our culture, our behaviour, our actions in relation to mental health, that's the divide that we need to bridge. The people who are in pain, the people who need help, are reaching out to the people who are willing to help. And you can be. I've been on both sides of this. I've been the person, and even on my worst days, I can still reside over here and want to help someone else. So you can be on both sides of this divide. So what I've learned, and I kind of have spent probably, I'm still ruminating, let's put it that way, but I've spent about a year looking at, okay, with all of my professional experience, with all my years working in corporate environments, with my own breakdown mental health issues, what have I learned? What do I think the key is to this? And for me, it is courageous, mindful change. And that takes 3 ingredients. Number 1 is care for self. So I'm sure you've all heard this analogy before about the oxygen mask, or anyone who's been on a plane. It's like you have to look after yourself before you can look after anyone else. I was not looking after myself, therefore I could not look after my family. I could not look after my colleagues, the people that I had a duty of care to as a manager. I was not in a position to do that. So number 1, care for self. And the word I want to tie into here is about being mindful. Mindful that it is your responsibility. No one else is going to look out for you. Look after you. Look after your mental health, your whole physical well-being. It is your responsibility, nobody else's. And we have to be mindful of that. Know ourselves, know what triggers when we're starting to go down that slippery slope. So we've all had stressful times, not necessarily mental illness, but whether it's month end, a big project you're working on, you're trying to close a big deal, whatever that might be, you know, stopped going to the gym, taking lunch at my desk, haven't met up with my mates for a while, you're starting to dissociate, you're starting to stop doing the things that actually keep you whole and hearty. So know what those triggers are. Look after yourself. Know what you need to look after yourself. Second part is care for others. Be mindful. Look around you. These people, that you see every day. Do you say good morning? Do you greet them with a smile? Do you walk over and just say, oh, really quickly, can I get that report? Oh, can you meet me in this meeting? I just need to call it now straight away. Yeah, great, tick. Transactional work is not good for anyone. We're all humans, human to human, heart to heart. Be mindful of the people in your space, in the workplace, and also your life. So whether it's your friends or your family members. And duty of care is a huge thing here. So as leaders in an organisation, we have a duty of care to our employees. But as employees, we really have a duty of care to each other. So look out for each other. If you're part of a group of friends, you have a duty of care to your friends. If you're a family member, and we know we don't always get on with family, but we still have a duty of care to do right by them. So be mindful of what's going on for them and be conscious of your duty of care to them. The big one for me is that we need to have courage. And this is where the divide comes. It's having that courage. So I am courageous enough. I am going to ask for help. I know what I need, and I'm going to be courageous, and I'm going to do it. And the best thing to do is think about it ahead of time. So you may not be going through mental illness right now. You may not have stresses and strains on you right now. But think, who would I go to in that emergency? Who is my go-to person? Could be someone in this room, could be a family member, could be the EAP, could be your GP. But who is my lifeline? Who am I going to? On the other side, making sure that, you know what, I'm going to be courageous. I'm going to get over that sense of awkwardness, that sense of, I feel uncomfortable, I don't want to impose, I'm sorry. I just don't know how to ask the question. If you are coming from a good heart and a good place, that conversation is going to go okay. There is no wrong way to have that conversation if your intention is pure. So today, what I would like to challenge you all to do is really step up to courageous mindful change for yourselves and for others. Look after yourself, and I am happy to send around a template to help out with just a little worksheet that can work that through for you. But figure out, how am I going to look after myself? How am I going to care for others? And the big challenge that I have for you is around having those courageous conversations. So I believe through conversations with Louise that the one-on-one template for managers has recently been redistributed, is that right? It's going to be. Okay, it's coming. Okay, great that it is going out there. For the 12 years I spent at Arnott, it is one of the most valuable tools that I ever had. I used it with my manager, and I used it as with the people who reported through to me. Because it really forces you to have some courageous conversations. So next time, I want you to ask, how are you feeling? Are you okay? What do you need? And I want you to open up, not with a, I'm fine, I'm okay, let me just get out of here really quickly. It's really take the time, because it takes two. You need to have those conversations together on both sides of the divide. So, for those who think I'm just having the conversations with managers, it's like, no. Any one of you on any given day, if we're talking human to human and heart to heart, you can walk up to Umid. He's looking a bit disheveled. Looks like he's had, a rough week. And ask Umid, how are you feeling? Are you okay?
Nobody asked me.
Jeez. It's a lonely place sometimes to be a leader because you have all of this weight of responsibility on yourself. Nobody checks in, are you okay? So, if you were still taking those corporate hats off and treating each other as good humans, ask. There are no boundaries on who you ask and check in on. So, the challenge, if you're willing to accept it, is in your next one-on-one. Start having those courageous conversations. And it's not, don't just wait until you start to go down that slippery slope. Start to have those conversations as early as you can. Have deep, meaningful, courageous conversations. So now, I would like to ask you to get courageous. So I am open to any questions. There is no out of bounds, whatever you would like to ask. Or if you would like to share with the room, if there's a particular prompt that's come to mind that you'd like to share, this is a good environment for it. So anyone